Now the retelling the Eminence in Shadow. Subscribe to the channel to gain 1,000 subscribers. After all, it is very important for development. Ani Recap is a famous actress and good student who is friendly with her classmates. However, her behavior around them is a front she uses to conceal her own anger and bitterness, left behind in the wake of an incident in which a fan of hers kidnapped and molested her. She despises everyone around her, classmate Minoru Kagenou in particular. He barely acknowledges her existence and seems to struggle to even remember her name. He is briefly shown to carry weights in his bag and clothing to increase his strength. Nishino is kidnapped by criminals who intend to ransom her, but they are interrupted by Kagenou, who is disguised as a masked vigilante calling himself Stylish Ruffian Slayer. The criminals refuse to take him seriously at first, but quickly acknowledge him as a dangerous brawler capable of defeating whole gangs by himself, known to them as the Balaclava Berserker, when they witness him dual-wielding crowbars. Slayer defeats both men and frees Nishino, who suspects that Kagenou is responsible for her rescue. A few days later, Kagenou is abruptly hit by a truck and killed. Through flashback, Kagenou explains that, for his entire life, he wanted to become a secret mastermind manipulating society from the shadows to protect the innocent, to be like the fictional heroes he looked up to, and relentlessly trained in martial arts in the hopes that he might one day be as powerful as a nuclear bomb. In death, Kagenou laments that no matter how hard he trained or how much he tried, achieving such a level of power was functionally impossible, as the laws of physics impeded him, rendering him an ordinary human no matter what he did. Having died, Kagenou finds himself reborn in an alternate world with magical powers and rededicates himself to his desire to manipulate and control society under cover of darkness as the Eminence in Shadow. In this new world, Kagenou is Cid Kagenou, the son of minor nobles of the kingdom of Midgar, Baron and Lady Kagenou, and younger brother to a sister, Claire. In keeping with his previous life, Cid trains in secret and resumes his vigilante lifestyle by killing bandits. One day, Cid discovers a living blob of rotting flesh and, after experimenting on it, succeeds in curing the curse afflicting it, returning it to its true form, an elven girl. Purely for his own amusement, Cid, in character as Eminence in Shadow, convinces the girl she is a descendant of ancient heroes who defeated a demon called Diablos, whom a cult is seeking to resurrect. Believing his lies, the girl agrees to form a group called Shadow Garden to resist the cult. Cid gives her the name Alpha, but is secretly amused that Alpha believed his entirely fabricated story. 3 years later, Claire is abruptly kidnapped. Alpha, who has now recruited 6 girls, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, and Eta, as the Shadow 7 into Cid's service, locates Claire and confirms she was kidnapped by the cult of Diablos. Cid is convinced the girls are merely role-playing with him, completely unaware that the cult genuinely exists and intends for Claire to be used as Diablo's host body upon his resurrection. Cid leads the attack, under the impression he is hunting normal bandits, and most of the cultists are killed. Claire escapes during the chaos and, with no idea Cid was involved, later leaves to attend Midgar Academy as planned. Cid, still completely ignorant of what really happened, is surprised when Alpha and the other shadows abruptly announce they are leaving. The Shadow 7 split up to hunt the cult all over the world. Cid believes they simply grew up and tired of role-playing with him. He enrolls Midgar Academy as Claire did, where he deliberately avoids standing out, choosing 2 extremely average boys, Scal and Pa, to be his friends. As a forfeit for doing badly on a test, Cid is forced to publicly humiliate himself by offering a fake love confession to the much higher class Alexia, a princess of Midgar. Cid plays along in his role as a typical background character and offers the confession, and is shocked when Princess Alexia agrees to be his girlfriend. When she invites Cid to her fencing class, he discovers Alexia is engaged to the royal fencing instructor Zenon, but she has no desire to marry him and has decided to use Cid as a tool of petty vengeance against him. Fully aware both that he is being used and of Princess Alexia's spitefulness and selfishness, Cid agrees to continue their fake relationship in exchange for money. After 2 weeks, Alexia admits to him that despite the effort she puts into sword training, she has never been as skilled as her sister, Iris, and was thus nicknamed Fencer Ordinaire. Cid admits he actually likes her sword style, which focuses on mastery of the basics. This angers Alexia, who opts to end their fake relationship. The next day, Zenon reveals that Alexia has disappeared and has Cid arrested as the prime suspect in her kidnapping. Now locked in a cell next to a mutated human girl, Alexia has her blood stolen by a cult scientist, who claims that it contains demon DNA. Cid is tortured by knights for Alexia's location, but since he has trained himself to withstand pain, he pretends to be a pathetic but innocent NPC, thinking it makes him look cool. After 5 long days, Princess Iris orders that Cid be released. Alpha suddenly reappears to Cid, bringing news that they have continued to monitor the cult while increasing the scope of Shadow Garden's influence and power. Cid is impressed that Alpha and her fellow shadows still occasionally visit to carry on their role-playing game with him, still very unaware of Shadow Garden's existence and power. Alpha plans to rescue Princess Alexia with 114 loyal soldiers. Cid plays along to amuse himself, knowing Princess Alexia really has been kidnapped, but mistakenly believing it was the work of corrupt knights and that the 114 soldiers are just background actors Alpha hired. In a massive attack, Cid murders the knights who tortured him, while his army searches for Princess Alexia. The cult scientist desperately injects Princess Alexia's blood into the mutant girl. She becomes a demon, kills the scientist, then frees Princess Alexia. While escaping, Alexia encounters Xenon, who reveals he turned her over to the cult in exchange for him being promoted to the role of a high-ranking knight. When Princess Alexia attacks him, Xenon easily defeats her, but their duel is interrupted by the sudden arrival of Cid. Xenon identifies Cid as the one behind recent attacks on the cult and announces himself as one of the cult's core members. The demon girl rampages through the city and fights Princess Iris. Alpha reveals herself to Iris as a member of Shadow Garden, defeats the demon with a single powerful blow, then vanishes. Cid duels Xenon and dominates him. Princess Alexia, who has no idea that Shadow is Cid in disguise, is captivated by his sword style, which expresses the heart of the style she has searched for her entire life. Knowing he is outmatched by Shadow, Xenon swallows pills that turn him demonic and increase his power, but using the principles of a nuclear explosion of which he has dreamed for so long. Cid sets off a magic bomb that dissolves everything in the blast radius to atoms, utterly annihilating Xenon and destroying most of the now evacuated city. Now reunited with Iris, Princess Alexia is freshly determined to master her chosen sword style. Now that Xenon is dead, and having remembered that Cid told her he admired her sword style, she offers to be his real girlfriend. When he abruptly rejects her, she punishes him violently. Alpha returns to investigating a group that has been masquerading as Shadow Garden and committing crimes in its name, and Iris orders a kingdom-wide investigation into both the cult of Diablos and Shadow Garden. Meanwhile, Cid, fresh off his violent encounter with Alexia, meets a scholarly girl with pink hair. The false Shadow Garden continues committing murders. A recovered cult relic is given by Iris to the pink-haired student, Sherry, the kingdom's foremost researcher. Cid's friends Pum and Skell take him to a new department store, where he discovers that his subordinate Gamma opened the store to fund Shadow Garden, with branches in every city in the world. Cid is impressed, but once again remains convinced that Gamma is role-playing, unaware he now owns dozens of stores and is effectively one of the wealthiest men in the world. He also meets Nu, the newest Shadow. On his way home, Cid witnesses Alexia fighting several murderers, so he saves Alexia, slaughters the murderers, and hands one survivor over to Nu for interrogation. Elsewhere, the murderer's boss, Gaunt Knight, confirms they have located the relic. Alexia confirms Shadow Garden is not really behind the murderers, though Iris still insists they are enemies of the kingdom. Cid, and Skell, having bought chocolate from Cid's store, try their luck with confessing to girls. Skell's confession ends with him being punished by her fiancé, and Poe's confession ends with him being arrested, mistaken for a stalker. Cid decides to just give the remaining chocolate to anyone, which by chance is Sherry. Her adoptive father, Vice Principal Ruslan, informs the naive Sherry the chocolates were probably meant as a love confession and encourages her to decide on her answer quickly, so as to not keep Cid waiting. Nu informs Cid the murderer she interrogated was a typical cult foot soldier, an orphan brainwashed with drugs and magic. One such soldier, Rex, is in the city on a cult mission. During their conversation, Cid is preoccupied, as Skell and Put have entered him in the Academy's sword tournament to impress girls. Nu mistakenly thinks Cid's rambling about the festival is him plotting to deal with Rex. At the festival, Cid duels student President Rose, a princess of the neighboring kingdom of Oriana. While still role-playing as a secret hero and keeping his skills hidden, he feigns injury repeatedly but persists in the fight, rising to his feet again after each of her attacks. The referee eventually declares Rose victor, but she is impressed at Cid's fighting spirit. Sherry asks Cid to be friends before they consider dating, though Cid has completely forgotten who Sherry is and decides to just avoid her. Sherry asks Princess Alexia about her relationship with Cid and is happy when Alexia reveals their relationship was fake, though Princess Alexia is privately upset another girl is interested in Cid. An election is announced to fill an empty student council seat. Gaunt Knight erects an anti-magic barrier, allowing the fake Shadow Garden to capture the academy. When Cid in Rose's classroom is attacked, Rose attempts to fight, but is much weaker without her magic. Cid recklessly rushes in to save her and is severely wounded. Cid reveals that he was excited by the chance to look cool fighting terrorists, and saved Rose merely to appear heroic. Rose, meanwhile, mistakenly believes Cid sacrificed himself out of love for her. After the students are taken to the auditorium, leaving Cid's body in the classroom, Cid secretly revives and heals himself. Rex attacks Sherry to retrieve the relic, but Iris Crimson Knights help her escape. Cid, who is also killing terrorists, reunites with and saves Sherry. Sherry identifies the relic generating the barrier as the Eye of Avarice, which absorbs magic and explodes once full. Cid deduces the cult are using the eye to kill the students and prevent them from becoming knights and obstructing their plans. The relic Sherry has been researching is the eye's control unit, which she hopes can be used to stop the explosion. Since Sherry needs tools from her room, Cid volunteers to get them for her. Rex warns Gaunt Knight that someone is killing their men, and Gaunt Knight suspects that the real Shadow Garden is responsible. It is revealed Gaunt Knight's true goal is to be reinstated to the Knights of Round. Nu sees the sole surviving Crimson Knight is her former fiancé Marco. While tempted to kill him, she decides to let him live. Cid orders Nu and her fellow shadows not to attack the terrorists until Sherry has the control relic ready. Sherry activates the control relic, deactivating the eye and its barrier. Cid arrives disguised as Eminence in Shadow, and Shadow Garden begins slaughtering the terrorists. Iris, believing that Shadow Garden is responsible for the attack, is enraged by their appearance. Cid finds Gaunt Knight burning Sherry's research and reveals he is Ruslan, Sherry's adoptive father. Ruslan explains he was once a master swordsman, until an illness weakened him. Believing the eye might cure him, he cultivated a relationship with the woman studying it, Sherry's mother. When she grew too afraid to continue her research, Ruslan killed her and adopted Sherry as a pawn to facilitate the research's completion. Ruslan combines the eye with the control relic and regains his lost sword skills. He and Cid fight, revealing that even with his abilities restored, Ruslan's swordsmanship is still inferior to Cid. Ruslan brags he has framed Shadow Garden for all his crimes. Cid, unconcerned by this, kills Ruslan, an act inadvertently witnessed by Sherry. In the wake of the attack, the kingdom designates Shadow Garden as a terrorist organization. Sherry informs Cid that, with Ruslan dead, she has decided to transfer to a scientific research academy to pursue her new goal, though she will miss him. When Cid asks what her new goal is, she insists on keeping it a secret, but the dark aura surrounding her words suggests her new goal is sinister. Cid is contacted by Alpha, who requests he visit the sacred city of Lindworm. While in Lindworm themselves to attend the upcoming goddess trial, Alexia and Iris visit Cid's department store, where Alexia, planning to try to seduce Cid, purchases thong underwear. A flashback shows that after defeating Ruslan, Cid pretended to have miraculously survived the injury he received while rescuing Rose. Rose, who has sworn to accept what she perceives as his feelings toward her by becoming his lover, hopes that her father might allow them to marry if Cid wins the trials. Cid mistakenly believes she is trying to convert him to worship the goddess Beatrix, who empowered 3 legendary warriors and the worship of whom is the dominant religion of Lindworm. Though he is reluctant to have her along with him on the trip, he opts to avoid her attempts to seduce him rather than actively push her away. In Lindworm, Cid sees Beta in her persona as the popular author Natsum, who became famous by publishing stories he told her from his past life's world, such as Cinderella, Romeo and Juliet and Star Wars. Beta passes Cid his mission briefing, coded in an ancient language. Rose misinterprets Cid's enthusiasm as a passion for history and languages, though Cid is really just impressed at what he thinks is Beta's latest role-playing event for him. A cultist murders Archbishop Drake of Beatrix Church, and while Epsilon kills one of his men, the murderer escapes. Cid visits a hot spring and happens to meet Alexia in one of the baths. Hiding her embarrassment, Alexia explains the nature of the goddess trial. Challengers will summon and duel the spirits of famous warriors, with the strength of the challenger directly related to the strength of the summoned spirit. Since she is busy dealing with the Archbishop's murder, Alexia asks Cid to assist her by joining the Crimson Knights. Cid refuses and nonchalantly leaves, fully exposing himself to the intrigued Alexia as he goes. Soon after, Alexia's investigation is cancelled by the interim Archbishop Nelson, whom Alexia holds to be the prime suspect in Drake's murder. Princess Alexia encounters Beta in her Natsum persona, and both take an instant dislike to each other. At the trial, many fighters are humiliated when no famous warriors manifest to duel them, implying they are unworthy opponents. Cid is suddenly announced as the next challenger, his entry fee having been secretly paid by Rose to show her father Cid's potential. To avoid exposing his strength or embarrassing himself by faking a humiliating defeat, Cid crashes the trial as the Eminence in Shadow, his presence summoning Aurora, the Calamity Witch whom, according to Nelson, was the strongest witch in history. Witnessing Aurora's manifestation, Princess Alexia realizes that it is possible the Eminence is the most dangerous man in the world. Cid defeats Aurora, but finding himself disappointed that the duel was too easy, he leaves. The arena barrier suddenly collapses, and a new summoning spell activates in response to Cid's actions, causing a summoning portal to begin following him. impressing the observing Shadow Garden. Cid decides to enter the summoning circle following him and disappears within it, finding himself within the sanctuary. Alpha appears with the rest of Shadow Garden. After they kidnap Nelson, they enter the sanctuary as well, as do Princess Alexia and Rose. Cid meets and imprisoned Aurora, who has been trapped for 1,000 years. After Cid frees her, she reveals that the sanctuary is actually a massive prison which stores the memories of every past hero. If they destroy Sanctuary's magical core, Aurora and the other memories will be deleted. As they pass through memories, Cid and the Shadows learn the cult formerly used the sanctuary to experiment on orphan girls with Diablo's blood in an effort to resurrect him. Most of the subjects died, but some, like Olivier, became strong heroes. It is revealed experiments on Diablo's arm produced the pills that turn people demonic, and also that, once a year, it produces 12 beads that grant 1 year of immortality to the cult's 12 leaders, the Knights of Round, one of whom is Nelson, who helped create the first beads 1 millennium ago. Nelson turns demonic and, with his control over the sanctuary, scatters everyone throughout multiple memories and creates copies of himself to fight all the shadows at once. Epsilon reveals she and the named Shadows personally brought into Shadow Garden by Cid were all girls experimented on by the cult. Cid cured them of the demonic/curse side effects, leaving their strength intact. They enter Sanctuary's archive and steal the records of the cult's experiments. Delta reveals she possesses berserker-level strength, allowing her to kill hundreds of Nelson's copies without any magic. Meanwhile, Cid and Aurora reach Sanctuary's core. The core is sealed behind chains that can only be cut by a nearby magic sword, and though Cid tries, the sword can only be drawn by a hero's descendant. Nelson summons Olivier to fight for him, but Epsilon appears with all the cult's research, and all the shadows abruptly teleport out of the sanctuary with Alexia and Rose, leaving the confused Nelson behind. As Cid is still within the sanctuary, Nelson orders Olivier to kill him. They duel, but Cid is disappointed by Olivier's mindless, empty obedience, mute and without personality, and as such finds the fight boring. Aurora decides to protect him as payment for producing her first new memories in a millennium. Cid is annoyed at her assumption that he will lose, claiming he has been paying close attention and has discovered a secret of the sanctuary. Olivier then stabs Cid through the heart, but he smiles and reveals one of his eyes has changed color. Cid grabs Olivier and kills her with his teeth, revealing to a stunned Nelson he allowed Olivier to stab him in a way in which he missed his organs. He also reveals the secret he figured out. The sanctuary absorbs magic from the air, so by compressing the whole of his magic into a solid mass within his eye, he can use his magic again. Cid sets off his atomic bomb spell, destroying Nelson and the sanctuary core. Cid bids farewell to Aurora, who kisses him and offers him the hope that one day he might find the real Aurora. Princess Alexia and Rose decide they must form their own secret organization to stand against both the cult and Shadow Garden. As Natsum, Beta agrees to help so she can spy on them. Alpha discovers from the sanctuary's archives that Aurora's true identity is that of the demon Diabolos. Elsewhere, Shadow Garden begins buying all the property in the city of Madlid to open another shopping center, though secretly it is to gain access to a valuable oil field. Alexia confirms the Beatrix Church is involved with the cult, but politics prevents her from investigating further, so Iris decides to rise further up the ranks of the Crimson Knights to gain her own political power, starting with winning the upcoming Bushin Festival tournament. Rose discovers she may be infected with demonic blood. The Bushin Festival arrives, attracting hundreds of fighters to the royal capital. Cid plans to shock the crowd by disguising himself as weak and defeating everyone he fights with astonishing ease. Using magical slime makeup, Gamma gives Cid the pathetic face of mundane man, an unskilled knight who died in poverty. And Rose, a foreign knight who fought at the goddess trial, witnesses the disguised Cid allowing himself to be beaten by a fighter named Quentin in an encounter on a street before the festival's beginning, and is amazed that Cid is uninjured. Cid learns the favorites to win the festival are Iris, Rose, Quentin and a mysterious, nameless Dark Knight. Rose encounters Cid and informs him that her father has selected a man named Perv Asshat to become her fiancé and force her to give up the sword. Cid advises that she relax and do what makes her happy for once. During the preliminary fights, Goldie Gilded, a skilled but annoyingly arrogant knight, advises Skell on how to identify warriors most likely to win and is disappointed when Cid, as Mundane, wins a fight against his prediction without moving. Only the watchful Anne Rose notices that Mundane moves so fast that he defeated his opponent before the fight even began. Goldie announces that Mundane's victory has made him Goldie's next opponent. The next morning, it is announced that Rose has stabbed Perv and subsequently disappeared. Rose's escape makes her appear guilty, which has dire consequences for inter-kingdom politics. Alexia decides to find and protect her, but Beta stalls her from interfering, already well aware that Rose is hiding in the city's labyrinthine underground ruins. Cid meets an elf named Beatrix who is searching for her missing niece and happens to greatly resemble Alpha. As mundane, Cid faces Goldie for his first duel, watched by Anne Rose and Quentin, both of whom are now suspicious of Mundane's abilities. To their great confusion, Mundane dodges Goldie's first attack by flexing his neck, and then causes Goldie's own magic attack to explode backwards on him by sneezing, knocking Goldie unconscious and causing his defeat. Despite his unusual methods, Anne Rose doubts even she could copy Mundane's movements. While meeting with Perv Asshat, Iris discovers Rose didn't injure him at all and observes that he has a sinister influence over Rose's father, the king. Mundane defeats Quentin, making Anne Rose his opponent the next day. Anne Rose attempts to intimidate him until Mundane reveals he wears armor weighing over a ton and yet still moves too fast for people to follow his true movements. Rose continues to evade the soldiers sent after her. Cid's elder sister Claire visits, but he avoids her by pretending to join Skell in hunting Rose for a sizable reward. Cid actually respects Rose for risking everything to escape an unwanted marriage. Cid overhears the Moonlight Sonata, a personal favorite musical piece of his for its brooding tone, being played on a nearby piano and quickly finds Epsilon is the one performing it. She explains she has been able to cultivate useful connections in Oriana Kingdom by posing as a skilled pianist. Princess Alexia and Beta suspect Rose fled after discovering that Perv is secretly a cultist using magic to brainwash and render the king an invalid, and they enter the underground ruins to find her. Rose, now suffering more seriously from her infected blood, considers surrendering to avoid dragging Oriana into a war. She suddenly hears the sonata and finds Eminence playing a piano, which he has stolen from where Epsilon was playing it earlier, in a cavernous underground room. She realizes she cannot surrender, so Eminence cures her blood infection and grants her power before vanishing. Cult soldiers locate Rose, but she kills them and decides to end her partnership with Princess Alexia and Beta to fight alone. This development pleases Beta, who is sure this was Cid's goal all along. Cid, meanwhile, is simply pleased he was able to pull off the dramatic moment of broodingly playing a piano underground to impress Rose. He returns home and finds that an angry Claire has been waiting all day for his return. After punishing Cid for neglecting her, Claire reveals she has replaced the still absent Rose in the festival and insists Cid watch her from VIP seating. Cid sits beside Iris, who apologizes for the Xenon incident. They discuss the Dark Knight competitor, Beatrix the Elvish war goddess, the festival's very first champion, and Cid realizes Beatrix is Alpha's aunt. Cid sneaks away to don his mundane disguise to duel Anne Rose. Perv takes his seat beside Iris, who despises him. He expresses confidence that Rose will return and marry him. He also suggests he is interested in hiring strong warriors, particularly Anne Rose. In the arena, Anne Rose attempts to match Mundane's speed, but is defeated. This redoubles Princess Iris's determination to defeat Mundane in the next match. Perv has Mundane investigated, though he is confident he has no connection to the all-female Shadow Garden. Anne Rose thanks Mundane for showing her she still has room to improve and invites him to work for her country's government, but he refuses. Cid looks forward to defeating Iris so he can become a legend by mysteriously disappearing immediately after his victory. Claire meets him at his room, quietly reminding him he forgot to watch her match. Cid sits beside Princess Iris and Beatrix to watch Claire's next match. Perv continues drugging the king, hoping Rose will try to save him. He also plans to have the king publicly assassinate Iris and Princess Alexia's father, the king of Midgar, to cause war. Claire wins her match and furiously searches for Cid, who is again absent from the audience. Iris duels Mundane, but has repeated terrifying premonitions of Mundane killing her instantly with a single counterattack. Mundane shortly disarms and defeats her in a single move. Rose infiltrates the VIP area with help from Shadow Garden and Perv is enraged when she kills her own father, who shows gratitude at being freed from Perv's control at last. Rose moves to kill herself but Mundane stops her, leaping from the arena floor in a single bound to burst into the VIP box, kill Perv's men, and shed his disguise to reveal he is the Eminence in shadow. Rose realizes Eminence is also the boy she once knew as stylish ruffian Slayer, revealing that when Cid was training himself as a child he killed the bandits who coincidentally had just kidnapped her, an encounter which inspired Rose to learn swordsmanship in the first place. Realizing she can't die yet, Rose again escapes. Beatrix, having longed to fight Mundane since their meeting, realizes the Eminence is a wanted terrorist and engages him in a duel. Alpha meets Rose and offers her membership in Shadow Garden, which Rose accepts. Amidst Beatrix and the Eminence's duel, Princess Iris joins the former in combat against him. After a fight which comes to span much of the city, Eminence again brandishes his atomic, city-obliterating attack, terrifying both Iris and Beatrix, but vanishes at the last second before its detonation, leaving Princess Iris enraged, frustrated, and more determined than ever to take her vengeance. Herve is forced to beg his master's forgiveness for his failure. Beatrix leaves the capital sad that she failed to find her niece. Holed up in her room, now filled with wanted posters of the Eminence, a mentally unraveling Sherry hears the news of his attack and renews her promise to herself to one day kill him. With the Eminence revealed to the world, Shadow Garden begin preparations to support Cid further, hoping he will soon take a more active role in running their organization. Alpha guides Rose into the monster-infested mountains near Cid and Claire's childhood village, revealing the mountains contain the old kingdom of Alexandria, now Shadow Garden's new secret base of operations. There, a distraught Rose has everything taken from her, her name, her clothes, and the last memento she has of Cid as she knew him. Now clothed in the characteristic slime suit of Shadow Garden's operatives, she becomes Soldier 666 in their army and begins training to prove her abilities and skill to them, under their supervision. Meanwhile, Cid lingers briefly in the underground of the capital, playing the Moonlight Sonata on the stolen piano. Pleased by the quality of his role-playing with Princess Iris and Lady Beatrix, he expresses his anticipation for the games to come. Thanks for watching. Post in the comments what anime to do the next retelling on.